Plumbers, delivery drivers, doctors, and representatives of other professions often depicted in adult films. Have you ever found yourself in situations resembling scenes from such movies? I drive a truck for Gordon Food Service, delivering frozen food. Once, I had a delivery to a women's prison kitchen where about 12 incarcerated women were working. Many of them approached me, touched my muscles, and asked how I was doing. I wheeled the cart into the freezer, and one of them followed me, locked the door, and asked if I'd ever had fun in a refrigerator. Soon, a guard arrived and told her to get back to work. I worked as a pizza delivery driver, and one time I got an order with a comment, "The door is unlocked, bring the pizza to the bedroom, straight down the hallway." I asked the manager about it, and he said, "What, you've never delivered pizza before?" "She's bedridden, her caregiver is away, and she's really nice." On my way to the bedroom, I grabbed plates and napkins from the kitchen. For 4 months, I worked as a family doctor. Once, a woman came in without an appointment, complaining of bleeding. I reviewed her medical chart and said she needed an examination. She mentioned she didn't mind being examined by a male doctor. I said something like, "Hold on, I'll get someone to be present during the exam." As I stood to leave, she raised her hand, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "No need, we can be alone during the exam." It turned out she was an off-duty police officer with a black belt in judo. While changing behind the screen, she remarked, "It's more likely I'd hurt you than you'd hurt me." In my entire career, I've never had a more awkward appointment. One Friday evening, I delivered pizza to a customer's house in the suburbs. The guy who opened the door slipped a $100 bill under my shirt. I was 18 and froze in shock. Soon, one of his friends pulled him away and apologized, explaining that the guy was drunk and thought I was a stripper. They were playing poker with a big group of guys. I wanted to return the money, but the drunk guy's friend told me to keep it and promised they'd tease him about it when he sobered up. I worked as a plumber for a long time. A few years ago, on Christmas, we got a call about a gas leak. When my partner and I arrived, the homeowner admitted there was no leak. She explained she just wanted company, paid for our call, and offered us coffee. We sat with her for about an hour. It turned out she was a romance novelist and very lonely. I had a strange feeling she wanted something more from us, but nothing happened beyond conversation. When we left, she gave us each $100 as a tip. It was the most successful and, at the same time, the strangest call in all my time as a plumber. This didn't happen to me but to my colleague at the pizzeria where I worked during college. We always worked late. One woman who ordered pizza was told the wait would be about an hour, which was normal for that late hour when most other places in town were closed. She told the dispatcher that if the pizza arrived in 20 minutes, she'd sleep with the driver. The dispatcher found it so amusing that he told the manager. The manager arranged for her pizza to be made early and assigned the delivery to a married, middle-aged man who knew nothing about the customer's condition. He came back pale as a ghost, saying, "You won't believe what just happened." Everyone burst out laughing because we knew he was a decent guy who'd never cheat on his wife. He said a very attractive, scantily dressed woman opened the door and said, "You made it, let's have some fun." Naturally, he had no idea what she meant and mumbled that he was married and only needed her signature on the receipt. The manager did the right thing by sending him. Any younger driver might have taken her up on the offer. We all had a good laugh, and the customer got her pizza in 20 minutes. I have many fond memories from that job. I worked as a pizza delivery driver, and every Friday evening, one guy ordered a chicken and cheese pizza. He always opened the door in his underwear and a t-shirt every single time. We had many drivers, but for some reason, I was always sent to him. Every Friday at 9:30 p.m., I was told I had to deliver a chicken and cheese pizza, and I knew exactly where it was going. He had a ferret, and once it climbed up my leg and into my pants. The guy said, "Wow, he likes you." All I could think was that this scene felt like the start of a cheap adult film. I work as a personal fitness trainer. Once, a client invited me to lunch and then suggested we have dessert at her place while her husband and kids were away. I worked as an ER doctor. A guy came in with testicular pain, suspecting testicular torsion. At that moment, the only male doctors in the department were me and my colleague, so I had to examine him. I asked a few questions and proceeded with the exam. Luckily, I found no issues, but during the exam, he got slightly aroused. I had to stay professional and ignore it, but I needed to glance at his face occasionally to check if my actions caused pain. I noticed he was smirking. It felt very much like a scene from an adult film. One time, we had a very attractive client who had just bought a house. I was working in the basement, cleaning pipes. I told her I'd take the trash with me, and she asked me to check her bedroom when I was done. I was prepared for anything, but it turned out she was just painting the walls. I worked as a pizza delivery driver. This didn't happen to me but to my colleague, who was one of the most socially awkward people I've ever worked with. One day, a strange woman in a bikini opened the door and asked, "How do I look?" He replied, "Very hungry." During my residency in the psychiatric ward, shortly after graduating, I was assigned to take a patient's history. She had erotomania. When I entered her room, she was lying on her back but gradually assumed the pose of Rose from Titanic when Jack was drawing her. She started asking me personal questions, showing off her cleavage, and accidentally touched my thigh. I tried to stay professional and push away inappropriate thoughts while continuing to take her history. I knew having any relationship with a patient was unethical, and I certainly wasn't going to take advantage of her mental condition to satisfy any urges. By the way, I was working in the geriatric psychiatric ward at the time. I work as a courier. 3 times, people in bathrobes opened the door, looked me in the eyes, and said, "Oops." So many women slightly reveal themselves, and I think most do it accidentally, though some might do it on purpose. I always look away out of politeness and just hand over the food. But my favorite is this one woman who orders from us often and always opens the door wrapped in a towel that always slips a little. I struggle not to look, and after every encounter with her, I can't stop thinking about her for hours. I work as a plumber and often do repairs in apartment buildings across the city. Often, residents aren't home, so we schedule a time and get keys from the housing management. Once, I had to replace a faulty shower head, a simple job. I got the keys, went to the apartment, and rang the bell. No one answered after 10 seconds, so I used the keys as per protocol, opened the door, and walked in. On the kitchen counter, I saw 2 completely naked women. They were as shocked as I was. I blushed, stammered an apology, and left. I called the number on the request, and one of the women answered. She admitted they were expecting a different plumber and that the showerhead was actually fine. They probably thought a male plumber was coming because our dispatcher has a very sexy voice. Besides, there aren't many female plumbers. I work as a hotel cleaner. Often, when I enter the men's restroom to clean, I run into men with their pants unzipped. I always leave immediately, but at least once a week, someone yells after me to stay. One Friday evening, I was sweeping the hallway, and a couple stood a few meters away from me for a minute. Then they went to the other end of the hallway. 5 minutes later, the wife approached me and invited me to their room. My colleague once worked near the pool, and a few women in the jacuzzi invited him to join them. He said he didn't have spare clothes. I still don't understand why he didn't agree. I worked at a small car dealership and was checking a client's car. I was lying under the car when she asked me something. I turned and saw her squatting with her knees apart. She wasn't wearing underwear, and I've never seen a more unkempt private area, ulcers oozing pus, a tampon string sticking out, and uneven pubic hair. It was horrific. I once worked as a courier for a local pizzeria. I pulled up to a huge house with a Mercedes parked out front. They ordered a 40-centimeter sausage pizza. I thought, this is definitely a scene from an adult film. I rang the bell, and a gorgeous woman, about 40 to 45 years old, opened the door. Flustered, I blurted out, "Did you order a pizza with a big sausage?" She paid with a credit card and slammed the door in my face, leaving me without a tip. Don't miss opportunities that come your way, or you might regret it later. One night around midnight, I delivered food from a restaurant to an apartment in a nice building. I delivered to this apartment before to an older man and didn't expect a young woman, maybe 21 to 23, to open the door topless. She asked me to come in and bring the food to the kitchen. I didn't want to, but I complied to get out of the awkward situation quickly. The lights were off, with minimal lighting, probably to set an intimate mood, but I could still see everything. In the living room behind the kitchen, the older man was sitting on a couch. He was dressed, while another topless woman was reclining. Dollar bills were scattered around, and a video camera was set up on a tripod. The man recognized me and said, "Hey, I remember you." He told the girls my name, saying, "She's cool, she's awesome." He stood up, and all the girls, there were 3 in total, gathered in the kitchen. I set the food on the table and looked at them. They were all attractive and somewhat similar. One was white, one was black, and one was Asian, but they were the same height, build, and breast size, with identical hairstyles and makeup. They all started urging me to at least have a drink or stay with them, but I politely declined, saying I had another delivery to make. When I got to my car, I sat there laughing for a few minutes. I work as a lifeguard at a pool. I'm not sure how often adult films are made about us, but this situation felt straight out of one. When our pool closes, we give visitors 15 minutes to shower and change before we start cleaning. Even after those 15 minutes, I always knock and announce myself before entering the women's locker room in case someone's still there. Often, a few women are still inside, and I have to wait a couple more minutes. One time, I knocked, opened the door slightly, and shouted, "Anyone in here?" No one answered, so I went in. Under the shower was a completely naked woman. I was surprised, apologized, and headed for the door so she could dress in peace. As I walked, she said, "Wait, can I ask you something?" She started asking me a ton of questions while continuing to soap her naked body. The questions were on random topics, as if she was making them up on the spot just to keep the conversation going, without even thinking of covering herself. I patiently answered all her questions, trying not to look at her. Afterward, I waited a few more minutes until she left. I'm sure if I'd wanted to, something would have happened. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new, super interesting discussions. In the meantime, check out our other videos.